Hey, how you doing? Matt Martin with Epic Property Management here with vlog number 4 of the Epic Adventures in Real Estate. So in the previous 3 vlogs, we covered how to list your apartment, how to put together a listing, taking videos, creating the video, and how to just kind of go about getting something put together. Now it's time to get your apartment listed that you're going to be posting out there for everybody to try to find it. So there's a couple different things that you can do to post it, to put things together that we already discussed of how to word your listing, how to take photos of it, and where to put your video. So now where do we place this listing? So I've done it a couple different ways, and I'll share with you some of the experiences that I've had. Where I've had the best experiences is through apartments.com. It used to be called Cozy, COZY.co. And what's really great about apartments.com, since they took over Cozy, is that they can do background checks, which are super important when you're a landlord to make sure you're getting the best possible tenants. So why would you want to do a background check? Number one, you're going to be looking for criminal history. That's huge. You want to make sure that you know the tenants that are going in to your apartment, because sometimes people, they're not always truthful, right? When you ask them, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Now, just because somebody's been convicted of a felony doesn't mean you should write them off, but you should at least be able to talk about it and also know that if they did pay their dues to society and they rehab their life, sometimes they're worth taking a shot on. Credit history. Apartments.com on their listings does a great job on pulling credit reports and listing everything together in one easy to read credit report. Now, you don't have to be an expert in reading credit reports. It does go into great detail where you can see payment history over the last 7 years. What I like to try to do is, number one, focus on the number. So before the pandemic hit, we were looking for tenants with at least a minimum of a 580 credit score. It was kind of the sweet spot. But since the pandemic, and it's been so difficult to evict tenants, and there's, with inflation happening and rising, people's costs are becoming more and more. So what we've done is actually increased it from 580 to 600 minimum credit score. It's only 20 points, and really that allows for a few errors or missed payments here or there, but it also shows that the person is still paying their bills, which is super important. And chances are, if they're not paying their, say, their Macy's card, their Capital One, their car notes, whatever it is, chances are they're not going to pay you as a landlord. It's just the law of averages. It's not always perfect, but chances are you're not going to get paid if the others aren't getting paid. So look at the payment history, and I always like to ask people why they missed payments, or maybe something happened that I need to better understand, because I look for that 600 credit score, but sometimes stuff happens. I've had applicants come to me and say that they went through chemo and cancer and they lost their job, or there's so many different things that can happen in life, because life happens, right? And it's not always perfect. So you want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. The rule is, though, I have to, because of the way that the pandemic is, and as of right now, today's June 14th, there's still a memorandum in place where we can't evict people for non-payment. I have one tenant that hasn't paid since January of 2019. So we haven't been able to get him out because of the pandemic. I'm sorry, 2020, because of the pandemic. As soon as we can evict, of course, he's top priority to get him out, because he's not paying, there's no willingness to pay or anything else, and it's really important that we have tenants that do pay. It happens, right? So another website I like to use is Zillow.com. So on Zillow, you can look up the value of a house, or what they state is the value of a house. There's always a great debate about this when I talk to real estate agents, and what the costs are listed on Zillow versus real life versus appraisal, because they don't always line up, and people sometimes have an inflated value in their mind of what the house is worth, but we're not using it for that today. What we use it for is to list apartments. So when I list the apartment, I use the same exact listing that I would put together on apartments.com that I would put on Zillow. Both of them are there, and they do a great job of screening tenants. And another great benefit to this also is that when they screen the tenants pay for the screening. So when people know that the screening is going to go through and that it's coming out of their pocket at their cost, that filters out a lot of the BS right up front. Because if somebody does have a colorful past, we'll say, colorful credit, chances are this is where it's going to come up when they realize they're going to have to pay for this background or this credit check. And you want to make sure that this person has the opportunity to share with you why there is that mark on their background or their credit, kind of like we just talked about a little while ago. So this allows you to make sure that you have a proper screening process in place and that your apartments are listed, because just because it's on apartments and Zillow.com, it doesn't mean that those are the only websites that it goes to, because they have sister apartments that sister listings that these go to. So I know on apartments.com it ends up going to 3 or 4 different websites. Zillow does the same thing. So really with these 2 sites, you listed in those 2 areas, you're going to get listed on 8 to 10 websites with no other efforts being put on your end, and all the messaging being filtered right through those 2 channels. This also gives you the opportunity to go onto YouTube and post your video walkthrough that we just covered in vlog number 3, where you're going to do the walkthrough on the video. Both websites offer spaces for YouTube videos to go, so you can just copy the link from YouTube and put it right onto your listing, and it puts your apartment walkthrough videos right on the listing on top of it. So that way, if somebody isn't the best visualizer, sometimes apartments over the years, a big house can get cut up into 4 or 5 different apartments, and it's not always just squares. Sometimes it's a little bit here and there and it just doesn't flow well, and that's where these videos can really help somebody kind of piece it together of how they work. Also on Zillow, that's really cool, is that they offer a 3D tour that you can do for no cost. So what is that? Well, what you do is you walk around with your cell phone, you open up the Zillow app, and it's the 3D Zillow app. And what you do is you stand in different spots and you pan. So you just kind of spin around the apartment, and then you move to the next room and do it again and again. And what this also does is provides not just a video walkthrough, not just photos, but a 3D walkthrough. So that way somebody can have the idea of what it feels like to be in that bedroom, in that living room, the kitchen, etc. So why is this good? Well, if you have somebody relocating from another part of the country, recently with COVID, some people didn't want to come out and see apartments, but they had to move or wanted to move for whatever reason. They needed space, the family grew, whatever. It allowed people to see the apartment virtually instead of having to set up a showing, and it made people feel a little bit safer. I rented a few apartments this way, and it worked really well for both of us going back and forth. We did the video walkthrough using FaceTime with just our iPhones. Then they used the pictures from the listing as well as the YouTube videos that I put up for the walkthroughs with the 3D, and they felt very comfortable, and they felt that they had a great feeling for the apartment, the flow, the feel, the everything, and not one of them complained that they didn't enjoy the experience. So again, it was just another way to kind of function and flow, to think a little bit outside the box during an uncertain time, I guess. So other sites I've used Facebook, the marketplace. It gets in front of a ton of people, a ton. The problem with that is that I had a lot of tire kickers, a lot of them, because people can just click like, yep, is this still available? It's the most annoying message. If you're searching for an apartment and they're using Facebook Marketplace, don't just click, is this still available? Add a message to it, because it really becomes redundant where you're answering 30, 50 people a day, right? Huge range of people, and nobody's getting back to you with answers of anything. So it's a convenience to have it there, and I think it's great. But if you're using Facebook, I wouldn't suggest using the marketplace for your apartment. I would take your listing, put it on Facebook, and then do targeted Facebook advertising. So what is targeted Facebook advertising? It's actually very intelligent advertising that I love to use, because it gets in front of people that I want it to get in front of. So when I go into Facebook and I'm creating an ad for a listing for one of the apartments that I have, all I do is I already created everything on, say, Zillow.com or apartments. Sometimes I flip it up and I do either or. I take that posting and I share it to my Facebook business page, Epic Property Management. From there, when I hit post, it's going to say boost available. I click on the boost available, and now I have the ability to invest money, to say I want to spend, say, we'll say $10 over a 3-course day, 3 courses of a day, and it's going to target different individuals during that time frame. So typically what I try to do is choose people, both sexes, from 18 to 100 years old, right? That's everybody that can legally go into a contract to rent an apartment. Then I filter it down and I say, okay, this apartment is in Haverhill, Massachusetts. Okay, so I wanted to create a circle of people of, say, 20-mile radius of Haverhill. Usually I do it shorter. I'll usually do it about 10 miles from where the apartment is, maybe 15. But if I have a few available, I'll broaden it to attract a bigger audience. Then what I do is I target down and I look for people that are renting. I look for veterans, entrepreneurs, business people, families, relocating, Merrimack Valley. I put in all these different keywords that have kind of become a recipe for me to be able to look for the right audience to see my ads. So why is that important? I don't want to pay for people to see my ad that are already homeowners and don't need apartments, or they're not looking for an apartment. The algorithms that Facebook has in place are amazing. They're really good, and they can target almost anything that you want to, as far as how much money people make a year, what their favorite color is, if they like to knit. There's so many different things that you can do that you can just nail it down on. So through trial and error over the last 5-6 years, I've really created kind of this recipe for myself that has allowed for a great audience with great results. And I don't always have to put a lot of money into the advertising. There have been times where I've gone very heavy, only because I've had 6, 8 apartments, 6, 7, 8 apartments all available at the same time, all come to the market for various reasons. Maybe people moved, construction's done, whatever the case is. Those are the it allows me to just get it out there to get as many people to see that I might have a studio, 1 bedroom, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, and put it out there to as many people as I can. So the least I've ever spent on advertising, I don't know, it was like $10 for 3 or 4 days, right? And the most I've ever spent was almost $200 over the course of a week. But I'll tell you this, once you get your recipe down, just like anything worthwhile, anything that you invest comes out 2 times. So a little bit more about that, right? So if I'm only putting $10 in to run a 3-day ad, a little over $3 a day, it's not the best use of money, but it's probably going to get in front of about 150 to maybe 300 people over those 3 days. And not all of those people would see that. During that time frame where I spent the big amount of money for an entire week for advertising, I got in front of thousands and thousands of people during that time frame, and it was the open house showings that I had was a legit. It was almost like a nightclub with the amount of people that came. So the results were there, and I rented all of them in 1 day. So that was a big thing. So it really is, whatever you put in, it comes out that way. So study up on targeted Facebook advertising because it's so powerful. And when you do the targeted Facebook advertising, it also translates over to Instagram, because Facebook and Instagram own this, they're both owned by Facebook. So it allows you to post on the 2 of the most widely used social media platforms out there. I have done video walkthroughs using like TikTok real quick, and Other social media sites wasn't as impactful or powerful. Facebook and Instagram were the two biggest pieces. So do some homework on the targeted Facebook advertising. Where I learned how to use it, really to my advantage, was studying Gary Vaynerchuk. If you don't know who he is, it's his last name. His first name is Gary. Last name is spelled Vaynerchuk. I learned so much about social media, advertising, and sales from this guy. It's crazy. He has a ton of books, a lot of things on YouTube. Highly recommend that you follow him because you'll learn a lot quickly. So once you get those posted, you do your background checks. The next video we talk about is selecting the right tenants. So anything you want to see going forward, let me know. Hit the subscribe button below. And thank you for your time. I appreciate you watching. Thanks.